Welcome to What Lies Ahead. I'm your host, Chris Raffini, lead singer of the Long Island band Overthrow. On my podcast, I explore everything related to the hardcore scene through the eyes of artists, promoters, and record labels. As always, please like or subscribe on all social media platforms. For more information and updates, check out our Instagram page at @WhatLiesAhead_podcast and find us on Facebook by searching What Lies Ahead. Now, on to the show. This episode's guest has been a constant presence in New York's music scene for decades. From the early days of Mind Over Matter to the melodic shift of Errortype 11, Arty Shepherd has played a major role in several influential bands across multiple scenes. His new band, Beinn, a project that shows another side of his songwriting, has just released its debut album, Perpetual Architecture. Beyond his work as a musician, Arty was also one of the people behind St. Vitus, a venue that was the home base for heavy music and countless touring artists. We're covering his history, his current work, his solo acoustic career, and the new album from Beinn. Arty, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you, Chris?
Doing well, man. Thanks for coming on. There's a lot to talk about, and we were talking a little bit before, obviously, and to break down, I guess, kind of all the amazing things and influential bands that you've been part of. There's also a lot of other cool stuff in terms of like St. Vitus, and then Age of Quarantine. You had the podcast that was really cool during COVID. But let's start from the beginning, and we'll work our way up, and then we're absolutely going to talk Beinn and the new album that just dropped. That's incredible, by the way. So let's talk like what drew you into. Let's start with Long Island hardcore, and then from there, how did Mind Over Matter form and get together?
Oh wow, it's a very contested story. If you ask Ed or John LaFata, Ed Reyes or John LaFata, they'll tell you a different story than I have. But I actually just talked to Ed about it, and he was saying that, well, me and Scott Martin, who plays in Solid Majority and was in Millhouse and like a lot of bands, he's in The Great Lie. Um, we played in a sort of metal cover band together uh when we were 15. So I was 15, so he must have been 13, I think. And that's how through Scott I met Eddie and General George, and because they all lived in Amityville. I lived in North Belmore. Um and I would go out to Amityville and we'd hang out all the time. And I guess we met John LaFata at Sunrise Mall. We were walking around with a boombox and we were listening to like I don't even know, like Death or Obituary or something.
Mm.
And certainly it was something metal because we were not savvy enough to be into hardcore at that point. And we were looking for, we were starting trying to start a band. We were looking for a drummer. John was a drummer. He's like, I might know a singer. I was like, I got a bass player. So we all got together in John's basement, and we had a different singer before George Reynolds, this guy named Mike Richardson, who sang at like one rehearsal, I think. And then George was at that rehearsal because he was also from Lindenhurst. And he just jumped in and he was like, oh, I can sing. And we were like, all right, cool, man. So that's how Mind Over Matter started. And the lineup morphed throughout the 5 years. But it was interesting. I was talking to somebody last night about this. It's like I see these modern hardcore bands, and I don't know if they ever played to nobody. You know what I
Mm.
mean? It's
Mhm.
like it's to me that's the test of a band is how good you are in front of nobody. And Mind Over Matter was one of these bands that didn't we weren't into the idea of the instant gratification. Here's the gratuitous mosh part. Here's this stuff that like everybody expects, and like I'm so insecure, I need you to mosh because that
Mm.
makes me happy. But it was like that wasn't what we were about, and I think that really came about because we played in front of nobody for 3 years. So it was
Mm.
like for I would say 2 years. 1990 we started, and then we played some decent shows, but for the most part it was like Carol's Place in Island Park in front of 20 people, or just random weird places. And Artie found the angle,
Yeah.
and that corresponded with our first 7-inch coming out, which Rec Age had already signed us. And we were so naive and ridiculous at that time. We actually asked the Wreck Age people, like, can you sign us for 6 records? Because you only want two? Like, no, like, we're
Mhm.
afraid you're not going to put our records out. Like just ridiculous stuff like that. And but when Artie found the angle and our first 7-inch came out, that all happened when Nirvana hit. And once Nirvana hit, everything changed. And we were suddenly at our record release show for our 7-inch at the angle, there had to have been 300 people there. We had never played to anything close to that. And it was awesome, and from then on, that was kind of it. It was weird because you saw, like the Guidos and the Guidettes in your high school were suddenly like, the bangs came down, maybe dude grew his hair out a little bit. You went to Lollapalooza that summer and there they were, and you're like, oh wow, I thought that person used to like make fun of me. Like everything changed, the way people dressed, the music they listened to, and I feel like, our timing was perfect for that. And, although our sound wasn't really that um akin to, jumping on the major label train or anything like that. But it was just there was more people interested in underground music after Nirvana hit. So that was kind of like where we took advantage of that. And I would say like the entire Long Island scene was able to benefit from that because it's just more people at shows, more suburban kids went out, and it wasn't as demonized as it was when we were younger. Um, and so like bands started popping up everywhere, and it was cool. It was very, very cool. And Mind Over Matter was at the forefront of that, mostly because I think we were like maybe a year older than everybody, because I made a huge difference at that time. Like that year was like such a big difference in how people perceive things and listen to music, and it wasn't just dependent on if you had older brothers or sisters, which is how I got into heavy music. Um, but yeah, like when Modern Matter started, I was definitely more. I had just started delving into like my senior year in high school. I was kind of getting into Leeway and Sick of It All
Mhm.
and shit like that, because they were the bands that were opening for the metal bands at Sundance, where we all went, and like everybody went to shows at Sundance in Mind Over Matter, whether we knew each other or not. Like, George was a hardcore kid, John was a hardcore kid, but me and Ed were kind of more metal guys, and Scott was always kind of in between, but he's more of a metal guy too. Which I think you can hear in Mind Over Matter, later
Oh
on
yeah.
when we get into it. It's like, I was aping um uh Voivod a lot,
Mm.
and I really wanted the band to sound like Voivod, and I'm just not a good enough player to pull that off. So it kind of sounded like Monover Matters, you know. But
Couple.
Scott was such an insane bass player. He was so good, and John was such a good drummer that they really carried us to another level musically. We were able to get away with, it's so funny when we play now, and I think that like kids will show up and like they only hear the lore of Mind Over Matter, and then we get on stage and they're like, I can't mosh to this. It's like you can't react to it because it's like what time signature is this in? Like what the fuck is going on? We just never played into any of the hardcore cliches. It wasn't our thing.
And I think that's why it's so well revered. And it honestly sounds like auto manipulation, for example, sounds like it could come out like today. Like it sounds like if you were on here today promoting, we're going to get into Beinn, obviously, but if you were coming on here and we were like going through all the tracks of auto manipulation, it would make sense that it would sound like it came out in 2025. That's how, to me, timeless it is. It's incredible. One thing you said you said it, you mentioned something with in terms of Nirvana, how they blew up, right? So I started going around like early 95. So I didn't get to go to the angle. The Weebles talked about that. We had them on, obviously Tommy, Arty, who I had on here, who booked shows there. But everybody and you now who are all describing is it's amazing how like what Nirvana did that kind of helped with bringing and building Long Island hardcore to an extent.
Oh, I would say all underground music across the
Mm-hmm.
board around the world, Sorry. It's it was night and day, and it was overnight, honestly. It was like we just couldn't believe that all these kids were so into it. But I loved it. I was like, of course, we got more people coming to our shows. This is fucking
Of
awesome.
course. Yeah.
Like why wouldn't that excite everybody involved? Um, and it was a cultural event, and I I guess it was ready to happen, I guess is what you say, but and Nirvana just happened to be the band that made it happen. But it should have been Jane's Addiction, in my opinion, is
Mm.
they were more of a band that we were all into, um, and really felt like was more to me was more influential, especially to what we were doing than say Nirvana was. But and they were truly alternative, like way before anybody was like cross-dressing and like, just doing things that were on the fringe. They were doing it way before that. I mean, but along with that came the heroin addiction and all that other bullshit, which is
Mhm.
kind of a distraction. Um, but yeah, no, yeah, it just changed the culture. It's like the Beatles changed the culture. It's like you look at the history of music, and there's these seismic events that happened where people dress differently, they talk differently, and it was usually some sort of underground thing that was bubbling, ready to happen, and then all of a sudden there's one moment that makes it happen and everything changes overnight. But it was
Yeah.
ready to change, it was there. It was you could
Mm.
feel it in the air. It was a special moment, and I'm glad, that I lived through it. I didn't get to take full advantage of it because I didn't get like, the big major label deal until much later. But like everybody else was in New York, I mean, it was crazy, like what was going on. Everybody was getting, they were just handing out record deals. But I did
Mhm.
eventually, when Mind Over Matter broke up, I broke up the band to start a band with Walter Schreifels after he quit Quicksand. Well, he broke up Quicksand, and that was on Island Def Jam, and that was in 1995. So, it was like that was, and I moved from Long Island to the city at that point as well. So it was kind of like, that was a big shift in my life. And it was, had Nirvana not happened, none of that would have been
Would have
happening.
occurred.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk, I guess, from that was the next step on with it. Actually, one thing I did want to ask. So just before, we'll move from mind over matter, or, we'll move for a little bit because
Oh yeah, no, I'll
when
talk
I
about it
have
all day.
people on here, everybody asks best favorite, like, or not even favorite, like most influential Long Island hardcore bands. You guys are always in that top 4 or 5, mind over matter,
I was gonna say it's
all the
not the
time.
top one. There's
It
certainly
it
bands that
is.
came after us that are way more influential.
But you guys, sound majority, sound even Tommy said, he mentioned you guys. Like, so a lot of people, and rightfully so, like, a good friend of mine, Anthony Race, like he's mind over matter. It's all about mind over matter. Same here. Like mind over matter is that it's classic, not even just Long Island hardcore, just classic music. And like I said, timeless where you listen to that album. So looking back on that, and you're a humble guy with this though, because so how do you still people like connect with that still? Like, how does that, feel after all these years later? We're talking about 30 years, if my math is correct, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's what's cool about it is that, um, I see it happen with Gorilla Biscuits, which obviously we're not even close to being on that level, but Gorilla Biscuits is like an intro band to hardcore, right? So like when you get into hardcore, you have to go back and listen to Gorilla Biscuits,
right.
and every new generation has to go back and listen to Gorilla Biscuits, and that's why they've continued on, and they've made their legacy. They've definitely kept their legacy alive. I think Modern Matter, eh, it's really up to the people that talk about us in interviews, and like the bands that have gotten popular from Long Island that are kind enough and want to support what really influenced them and got them into it. And I think that, like we were also like one of the first bands from the area to like go and tour in Europe and put out
Mm.
records internationally and do that sort of stuff, which I don't think anybody really thought was a possibility, who was just like a suburban kid who started a band. Um, and that was like, I think Tommy would say stuff like that. It's like, oh, we saw Mind Over Matter doing all this stuff and it really influenced us. And that's amazing and it's humbling. I talk to Justin Beck all the time, and like he's like a number one Mind Over Matter fan, and he like loves to talk to me about it. And he's he says the same thing as you said. He's just like, dude, if that record came out today, it sounds like it was recorded yesterday. He's like, a couple
Us.
of years ago, he was like, we should put that record out again, but put a bunch of young guys on the back of the cover. I was like, what? Like a put together boy band? I was like, what the fuck? But I feel like we were grasping for something beyond our means. Like we were definitely playing above our station. I'll say that. Like I'm not sure we were as good as what we produced together. So we were the sum of our parts. Like I would walk in with a riff. I wrote a lot of the riffs, most of them, and I would walk in with a riff, and like Scott and John and Josh eventually when he joined, they would just make it so much better. They would just like put this arrangement to it that was just from outer space. And and I would always we'd talk about it on occasion, but it'd just be like, yeah, the hardcore kids aren't going to like this. And it was hard. It was like honestly, like, we're playing shows with Neglect or VOD, and these kids are going fucking psycho. And it's just like, and then we get on stage and everybody's like, like just confused. And like, for me personally, I grew up listening to prog rock. So I
Yeah.
want people to listen to music. I want people to take the time to like listen to it, absorb it, have a deep listen. People don't do that anymore, which is why hardcore is so popular because you don't need to deep listen to hardcore. But like it's definitely just like one of those things where I feel like we were just doing our own thing and not giving a shit what was popular and what was cool. And we didn't stop, like we never played that game of like uh, we want to be like other bands in the scene because we didn't want to be like other bands in the scene. And I think in turn that influenced the other bands in our scene to not want to be like New York hardcore or that sort of thing. Like you look at the Long Island scene from when we started or like to the end of the to like the end of the 90s, and every band sounds different. And that's why you
Yeah.
got Taking Back Sunday and you got Brand New and you got these bands that were like influenced by what we were doing, but they were taking, I think, from Silent Majority's influence from us, you know what I mean? And like just building on it. And
Right.
to me, Silent Majority, especially Life of a Spectator, which I did that record with those guys, and like it was to me that was just it's the epitome of the scene we built, the songs that we like. It was everything we were trying to achieve. It sounds different, the lyrics are different. They're very, locale specific. It's like listening to Howard Stern before he went syndicated. It was
Mhm.
everything was very Long Island. It's like, which is awesome. It's like I listen to Tim Dillon, the comedian.
Yeah.
Like he talks about Long Island all the time, and it's fucking hilarious. And like I I just feel like we were it was good timing, and we had a crowd to play to that was open-minded, which was that's a huge part of it. Because like if you're playing in front of nobody forever, it's hard to tell if what you're doing is any good, but
Mm.
like if you're playing in front of people, like well, people are showing up, so it must be something, right?
Yes.
So it
Yeah.
gives you self-confidence to go back, and like that's stayed with me through my whole life. I think I'm most productive songwriting wise when I just get home from tour or I just get out of the studio
Yeah.
because my self-confidence is really high and like I'm like raring to go. So yeah, I think, so the auto manipulation especially, although we just remastered, I want to do a little promo. We just remastered Auto and Security and the Hectic Thinking EP, which is all up on digital now. It's not,
Well,
we didn't really promote it. I just did it on my own. I was like, oh, let me, remaster it.
it's great.
But Security sounds fucking great. Like,
Yeah.
great. I was like, oh, this is a vast improvement. Auto manipulation didn't need a lot of audio work. It's kind of there already. But yeah, it's like it brought new life to those songs, and like I just I'm really proud of what we did. I'm proud that we're all still friends. I mean, 35 years we've been
Yeah.
friends.
Right.
And like I think they were a little sore at me when I quit to play with Walter, but they understood after a while, and everybody went on to their own success. So, it was like kind of a good thing. But I do think if Mind Over Matter stayed together, we could have done even more and it would have been awesome. But, you know, I, I kind of wanted to go, I wanted to sing,
Yeah.
which was like after World's Fastest Car, I definitely wanted to be a lead singer. So that wouldn't leave much room for George. So, you know, he can't play an instrument. So,
Just shift to, Errortype 11 in a sec. But I saw you guys, it's 2 years ago now. Wow. In Brooklyn. I was at the Monarch with the show with Silent Majority and Indecision.
oh,
And you
yeah,
guys
yeah.
didn't miss a beat. Like, you guys sounded great that night. You really did.
I mean, all those guys are such good players, it's like
Yeah.
it's not hard. I'm very dependent on them to kind of carry the weight. Like John and Scott still play together in The Great Lie, and they've
Yeah.
played together in other bands, and Josh is just such an insanely talented guy. He doesn't really play in bands anymore. I mean, he was playing in VOD for a while, um, but I mean, like he's insanely talented, like beyond the kid wrote symphonies at like 17. It's fucking
Yeah.
ridiculous. And but that's the type of people. And George Reynolds is the epitome of, like Tim and Tommy are like the two guys that really wrote lyrics that I think just really, and I think that George is like you were talking about the connection part. I think George's lyrics are a huge connection, especially to kids on Long Island or any suburban kid, really, but especially Long Island, because what those guys wrote about was just it's so spot on, the confusion, the craziness. It's like you just Long Island is a beast of its own,
Yeah.
like just weird racism, weird like segregation, but not. And like I mean, I haven't lived there in 30 years, but every time I go out, I'm just like, oh, what the fuck is going on, man? But it is what it is. It's the first suburbs, and it hasn't really progressed much, to
Yeah.
be honest.
So Errortype 11, right? So that, it had a distinctive shift in sound, like absolutely, and that's what's more melodic. I don't know if more indie driven is the right word, but definitely more melodic. And what influenced that transition for you in
Quicksand.
terms of writing?
Who's Quicksand? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
well, I was coming off of I was in World's Fastest Car for almost 2 years,
Right, with Walter. Right, right, which I
with
skipped.
Walter,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And eventually I quit because it was a crazy situation. I told Tom Sheehan from Indecision, I told this whole story because he was like, "Oh, I had Walter on my podcast and I asked him about World's Fastest Car and I was like, "Well, what did he say?" And he like kind of told me what Walter's answer was and about why we broke up. And Tom was like, "Yeah, I was outside of CB's waiting for you guys. You guys were supposed to play with Orange 9mm, and you guys canceled like last minute." I was like, "Did he tell you the story?" He's like, "No." I was like, "I'm going to tell you the story now. I won't do it. I won't take up the time telling it now." But it was, I call those years my Wally College, because I really learned a lot. It was a crash course in the music industry, and and what to do and what not to do when you're sort of like running a band. Walter was young. He's a couple years older than me. Actually, I think he's 4 or 5 years older than me. I think he was like 27 when we started, and I was 22, and it was just a crazy experience. But I really learned a lot about songwriting during that time.
Mm.
And as Walter was my favorite songwriter, so I was playing with the singer-songwriter of my favorite band. And, not a lot of people get the opportunity to do
Yeah.
that. And I felt very, very lucky. He handpicked me, like, I want to be with you. I want to play with you. And I was like, you do? I don't know why, but okay, cool. And, but we were on Island Def Jam and it was like it was difficult to get anything out. We were this close. Like the record was, Used for Glue was going to come out as a single on Revelation. And, the ads were done, everything was done. We had a disastrous show in Philly. We canceled a show in New York. The drummer quit or we threw him out. Um, and yeah, and then like it went on for another like year, and then eventually I quit. So as soon as I quit, I was like, I called up Scott from Mind Over Matter, who wasn't really doing much, and um, I called Phil Henratty from Clockwise, and Phil played a bunch of bands, but I don't remember who suggested them. But I was living with Eric Matthew from Bad Trip, which is another band I was in.
Yeah.
So he
Right.
naturally became the drummer. Me and him were jamming that whole time anyway. And he's a great songwriting drummer. So like it would just be me and him, and I'd just play. And eventually, I was just like, we should do something with this. So Scott came down, Phil came down, and it happened really, really quickly. I mean, we recorded a demo, which actually I think those songs wound up on our record within 4 months, and then some records which had started with Walter and Sammy Siegler and this guy Matt Pincus, who's very, very, very successful music industry guy now. They started some records and they reached out and they were like, "Yeah, we'd love to sign you." So we signed to some, and our record came out within a year of our existing.
Yeah. It moved
Um,
quite fast, I remember.
it
Mhm.
did, yeah. And then Scott quit because he was still at Vassar. Oh no, he had graduated Vassar, and I think he was getting a teaching job. And he just wanted to start his life and not do the touring. We were touring a lot. He didn't want to hold us back. Um, and so Adam Marino, who was in Seisha at the time, he quit Seisha, joined Errortype, and then I went on to play with him in Instruction and Godfire's Man, which was the next two bands. So we played together for the next 10 years. Um, but yeah, it was we did two albums with Errortype, um, and two EPs, did a lot of touring, a lot of like shitty basements and VFWs, and which was, a little bit weird. Like yeah, the emo scene was happening at that time, and we were a little too rock for the emo scene, and that was done on purpose. I was like, I would listen to these bands and I'd be like, it's kind of wimpy, like why is it so wimpy, and like I was like, we should play like upbeat rock stuff,
Mhm.
and which kind of came off sounding like the Foo Fighters a little bit. Um, but and I feel like that had more to do with the fact that like Dave Grohl grew up with all the same influences that say I did or
Uh-huh.
we did, it's like it's all kind of the same shit. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was a great band. We recorded probably two albums worth of material after our second record came out. We kicked out our drummer, we got a new drummer, and after I guess we broke up in 2001. Um, Phil quit. Uh, he literally walked out of the room, and I turned to everybody else and I went, "We're going to change our name. We're going to write a bunch of new songs, and we're going to go back to England because we had been in England the year before and we got a great reaction, much better than in America.
Mhm.
And we're going to have a record deal within 6 months." And I was totally right.
Mhm.
So it was crazy. It's like
Good manifesting, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
that was it. I
Yeah.
mean, like I've done that a bunch of times in my life, and I feel like I've used all my mojo because it's not happening anymore. But
Uh-huh.
but it was really great. It was like, and I was sad that Phil left. I was very dependent on Phil as a melodic guitar player, as a backup singer. Like I literally thought I couldn't live without him, at that time. He wanted to start his life. He was getting married. He wanted to have kids. He wanted to just like, not live this crazy lifestyle. But Adam and I had basically set our lives up to do that. So like
Mm.
we were like, we're gonna live that crazy lifestyle. We don't really care. And like we weren't married, we didn't have kids, it was just like, let's go. So we went, we changed the name to Instruction. Um, Tom Capone from Quicksand came on board. I wrote like 7 songs in a week, like no joke. We recorded almost all of them within a month, and we went to England for one show. We played one show in London with our friends, this band 100 Reasons, and and we were told by this management company over there was like, we want to manage you, but you got to come over for the show. So we put it on I put it all on my credit card, and we went over and we played this show at the Underworld, and we got a booking agent that day. Kerrang wrote us like a 5K review. Like we didn't even have anything out.
Hmm.
It was just like crazy. And the big thing was the booking agent. So we got the booking agent, and the only rules were that we weren't allowed to say no. So this guy was a huge booking agent in England, and it was just like, I'm going to put you on this tour, this tour, this tour, this tour. But, like our manager was like, you have to come. You can't say no. And I was like, okay. And I was working in stock photography at the time, and they had an office in London. So we went over like within a month, we were back over. We toured this band called Hells for Heroes, who were signed to EMI or RCA or something. And we did that for a month. We sold like 3,000 CDs. We burned, we made these really like DIY CDs. We
Yeah.
sold them ourselves, like standing outside after the show.
Hmm.
We sold like 3,000 of them on this tour. It was crazy. And they were £3 each. So like $3 at the time.
Right.
It's fucking ridiculous.
Great price. That is. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
great price. Nice price. And yeah, and then like so that like juggernauted it. We had a lawyer over here in America, and she basically parlayed what we were doing in England into America. And we all of a sudden there was a bidding war over us within 2 months. I'm not kidding. It was fucking ridiculous.
oh my God.
And we went back. We went back. We toured with a band called Funeral for a Friend. Then we found out we were going to be on Download Festival, the first Download Festival, on the main stage. We hadn't even been a band for 6 months, and we were playing the main stage at Donington. I was just like, this is fucking nuts. And then then we toured with Biffy Clyro. We did Download. We played twice that day. We opened for Metallica and a secret show. Then we were told we were going to be on Reading and Leeds festivals. And at this point, we now had two big offers from two big major labels. And this is a really long story, but like I had $50 in my bank account and $25,000 of debt in credit cards.
Jeez.
So I had lost my job at that point, and I put all those tours I put on my credit card. Took me 10 years to pay it off.
Wow. Yeah.
But yeah,
Like
it
think
was,
right, like all of that, like how successful everything was going with the band, but then
yeah, I had no money at
you're in
all.
debt a little bit there.
Like we got paid $100 a night for all those tours, so like somebody had to pay for all that shit. And it was all just, I luckily I had great credit. I had this credit card that I just kept fucking maxing out. It was crazy. It was absolutely, when I think back to it, I'm just like, what the fuck was I thinking? But we signed to Geffen
Amazing
Records.
experiences. Sorry to interrupt, but like
Oh,
amazing
dude.
experience. Look at the bands you open, Metallica. You're talking about all these bands that you're playing with.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh, it got better from there. But like I mean, it was crazy. Like Reading and Leeds festivals were the pinnacle of instruction.
Mm.
And it was like we had only had the one 4-song EP, which didn't even have distribution. So it was fucking wild.
Yeah.
And and we went on stage at Reading and Leeds, which I don't know if have you ever played Reading and Leeds?
No, I would love
Uh,
to. No, we have
it,
not.
it,
Yeah.
they're the best festivals in the world,
Seen
hands
videos
down.
online. It looks incredible.
It's incredible. So we were playing this small stage called the Carling stage, and we had no idea. Like sometimes you could play in front of 200 people, or you could play in front of 10,000 people. You have no idea because there's 11 other stages, and there's constantly other shit going on. So
Yeah.
if you're playing against somebody who's super hyped, you're going to play in front of nobody,
Right.
right? But if you're super hyped and it all works out where nobody else is, competition, you might get a good show. We walked on stage at Leeds because we did Leeds before Reading, and it was like 6,000 people stuffed into this fucking tent, and they were singing so loud I could feel their breath.
It's
And
awesome.
I was just like, this is fucking nuts. We brought
Oh,
a friend of ours who filmed the whole thing. There's a video for a song called Rise Up that depicts it because we played Brixton Academy after that weekend on the Monday, which is another legendary venue, like best venue ever.
yeah. I've heard that's an awesome place.
And I was just like, what the fuck, man? And then as soon as we got home from all of that, we moved to Los Angeles and we started making a record with Bob Ezrin, who produced Pink Floyd The Wall and all the Alice Cooper records. And like it was nuts. It was nuts. Like the whole
It was
thing
like
was
shot
just
out of a cannon for a couple of years from like '04 to '06 or '03 to, oh, like give or take that
oh
time,
05.
right?
Yeah.
Oh
Oh,
five, right? '05. Okay.
it was oh 02 to oh 05, which seems like a short time, but at the time it felt like
But you did so much
forever.
in that time.
Yeah, it was wild. But that's when things started going south, was at that point. Once we started making the record, it's like uh, Universal and DreamWorks combined, they merged. So while we were making our record, Universal took on like 30 other rock bands. And then this artist named Ashley Simpson, who was Jessica Simpson's sister,
Oh yeah. I
and
remember,
um,
yes.
and 50 Cent, they both hit while we were making our record. And Jimmy Iovine, who was the president, was like, "We're cutting all the rock bands' budgets, and we're only going to put our money behind pop and hip hop
Hip hop.
because it's
Right.
cheaper. Because it costs too much money to break rock bands."
Hmm.
So the bands that got backing were like Papa Roach, Rise Against. Um, I would say even like Sparta was our label mates. They got fucking the Shaft. Like almost all the bands got the Shaft, except for, yeah, like Papa Roach got a big back, but they had already sold millions of records, so fair enough, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and that band, like we took about 6 months to make a record. We made it in LA, we made it in Connecticut. Um, it was mixed by like fucking Andy Wallace, like
It's
just the
crazy.
whole nine. We spent over $500,000 on it.
Good band,
And
man. Really is.
oh, thanks. I mean, yeah,
Oh,
it
it
was.
is.
I have mixed feelings about it because it was such a crazy experience. Like especially once we started touring in America, because we hadn't toured in America at all.
Yeah, over Europe
We'd
doing
only
everything.
toured in England. Yeah, it was only England. And they wouldn't put the record out in England, which
Hmm.
I was like, what the fuck?
After all that, that's just it's
After all
amazing.
that, yeah, like we handed them like millions of dollars worth of promo, and they were like, "No, we're gonna break you in America, and then you can go back to England." And I was like, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, what the fuck?" And I argued and argued and argued, but I'm not a problem artist, so I was just like, "Well, you guys must know better because you work in the
Hmm.
music industry." But
All
little
right.
did I know that most of those people are fucking idiots and don't have their jobs because they're like some nepo baby or some bullshit.
Right.
But like it was like, and are very arrogant because they had more money than God to spend on bands. They weren't spending it on us. But, in retrospect, I look at it and I'm like, we got $5,000 a week in tour support. Like, would I take that now? Hell yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
my new record didn't cost even half of that to record, let
Mhm.
alone fucking 1 week's fucking tour support. Are you kidding? Fucking insane. So then like, even before the album came out, we started touring in America, and we were being pushed as a new metal band, which we were not. But the new metal scene was what was hot at the time.
Yes, it was.
And
You're right at that
those were all
time.
the bands that were drawing. So we went on tour, and I'll go through the list. I'll try to keep the story short so we can get into what I'm doing now, but we'd have to skip 25 years to get into what I'm doing now. But
No, but
the
this is great stuff. So yeah, no, go, go.
the 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 first tour we did in America was Puddle of Mudd. Singer
Puddle of
got
Mudd was
arrested.
they were really big at that point in time.
They were, but they're a ridiculous band. And the singer got fucking arrested at the first show. And I mean, dude, it was like it was fucking crazy. Like we thought the tour was
How
over.
long? Sorry, do you remember how long was that tour supposed to be?
It was 3 weeks.
3 weeks. So first show, he's arrested.
He's arrested. No, but he got out.
Uh,
And we went to the next show, and he
okay.
he walks in the dressing room because like basically we were playing in Toledo. He gets on stage after 4 songs, the band walks off stage. They're like, fuck this dude. And then he starts like singing, making up songs. He's wasted. And he's like, Toledo is Nito, and like all this shit. And I'm just like, oh my God, like what the fuck is happening? And I'm gonna preface this story with a story before. I was gonna leave it for my Substack, but I I when we showed up backstage, like before the show, they were stamping the backstage passes, and they were stamping it with a stamp that said Tulsa. So Tulsa, Tulsa. And I was like, we're not in Tulsa. Like, why? I looked at the tour manager and I was like, why are you stamping a Tulsa? He's like, he hands me a bunch of, give these to your merch guy. He can hand them out to girls. And I'm like, okay, why? Like, I don't understand. And he goes, put it on. I'm like, all right. I put it on. He goes, go to the mirror. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, write it down. What is Tulsa backwards?
Oh God. All right.
Yeah. So
Jesus.
so this is how this tour started. And then he gets
That's
arrested
that
that
first
night.
few days.
Dude, it was fucking crazy. So like, yeah,
Oh
we're a bunch of
man.
fucking hardcore kids.
Yeah,
Like
right. Like play by play. Like
maybe
you
a
said,
little
let's go back in the
overachieved.
beginning. You were playing in front of like you said took a little time for you guys to play in front of people. Now you're going out with Puddle of Mud, and this is the first few.
Oh yeah, no, no.
Crazy.
And in England, we had played in front of 100,000 people. It was fucking nuts. And like, and this is like, this was fucking crazy. So he gets arrested, whatever. The next day, my management's just like, go to the next show. It'll get worked out. He shows up, comes backstage, and he's in his orange jumpsuit from the Department of Corrections of
Oh
Ohio.
my God.
And he's like, hey guys, yeah, hey, look, I'm sorry about yesterday. Like the rest of the tour is gonna be great. He's like, and we were like looking at him, like he's like, yeah, look, they let me keep the suit. I'm just like, oh my God,
Oh
like
geez.
what the fuck? And he played the show that night in the fucking orange jumpsuit, of course,
Naturally, right? Yeah.
naturally. So yeah, so that we did Puddle of Mud, then we did Papa Roach, who were awesome,
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful people,
They seem
great,
like good dudes, like just by interviews
really
and stuff
good.
you see. Yeah. Mhm.
And a really, really good band. Like they put on a great live show. They're the real deal.
Yeah, they're
Really
good.
fucking cool.
Mhm.
Really, really cool. And then we did 3 Days Grace, and we did oh, there was another one. I can't remember. Fuck. I'm gonna hopefully another band member will be listening to this and like fucking say something to me about it. And then we did Project Revolution, which was Linkin Park's like touring festival.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember those. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it was Linkin Park, Korn, uh, uh, Snoop Dogg, um, uh, The Used, Less Than Jake, Ghostface Killer, Funeral for a Friend, Downset, uh, Mike V and the Rats. It was fucking
Sick.
hilarious. It was
Yeah, sick.
hilarious.
Yeah.
So we did that, and then we did Helmet's first reunion tour. Um, and then we did Korn for about 2 months in
Just
arenas.
nonstop, man.
Yeah, that was I was home for like a couple of weeks that year.
Let
And
me ask you
then,
something about that. Artie, one thing, I apologize.
sure, of
Were you
course.
now, because you're talking about it, in that moment, did you stop yourself and be like, holy shit, because at that, in those bands, you're not talking like you're touring with tour with those bands at any time is incredible. You were touring with those bands at that time were like prime, big, they were on the radio. Were you able to stop and like kind of enjoy the ride while it went, or it was going so quick you were just like, all right, this is what's next, this is what's next?
I drank my way through it, to be honest.
Okay.
Um, I felt like a fish out of water
Okay.
in all of that. When we got signed to Geffen, it was all I wanted. All I wanted. Like I worked so hard and sacrificed so much to get to that point. And where it was my record deal. It wasn't Walter's record deal. It was my fucking record deal,
Right.
right? And so I was like, yeah, this is it, man. Like everybody's been always telling me that like my voice is too rock radio for indie music and I should be on the radio and blah blah blah. Like whatever. I didn't believe my own shit because I kind of hate my voice, but like it was just like it was a weird time, but it was also something. It felt like a goal. It felt like we had achieved
Right.
something.
Right.
And but then they throw us in with all these bands who like I don't know. When we were in England, I actually liked the bands I was touring with. Like when we toured with Biffy Clyro, who are one of the biggest bands in the world outside of America now. At the time, they were nobody, and like it's like they were just so good. They were so good. It was utterly inspiring. Like every day I would sit and watch their sound check and just be like, I can't believe how fucking good this band is. And
Mhm.
within 3 years, they were fucking massive. And like then, like you put me on stage in front of Korn fans, and it's just, it just didn't translate. Like we didn't play in like a down tuning. Everybody on that
All
tour
right.
was tuned to like A,
Yeah. Okay.
like and playing 7-string guitars. Like we were, still in drop D, and we're a post-hardcore band, at the end of the
Hmm.
day. And post-hardcore is a very broad
Right.
perspective, but it's like basically post-hardcore is hardcore kids who post-hardcore and emo is basically hardcore kids who decided that they want to be better songwriters and actually write real songs. And everybody had different levels of ability to be able to do that. And, it was like I went along with the project because I felt like we were working to be on the radio. That was the point, so that we could sell records. And it just felt I felt like a fish out of water, honestly. Like it was musically we didn't fit in. Philosophically, a lot of those new metal bands were like this weird combination of hip hop and like 80s glam metal. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's a good way to put it. Yeah, it
Like just
was.
in more of in a lifestyle, shall we say? Like Korn, who are wonderful, except for Fieldy, that guy's a douche. But like
Mm.
the rest of them were fucking really, really nice people. And they all had their own bodyguards, their own buses. Like it was a really weird vibe. Like the whole thing was
Yeah,
like the Chevelle guys were like these like Christian kids from Chicago. They were on that tour too. Breaking Benjamin was like inexplicably one of the biggest bands in America. I don't know why, but they were. And like every day they'd get on stage and it looked like they just didn't want to be there. I couldn't understand it. And Skindred was the other band that was on it. They're like a metal reggae band from
yeah,
England,
yeah.
very,
Hmm.
very popular now. They were wonderful. But like, I felt like we were at a place and we did get a decent reaction. I mean, when you play those arena shows and you're on at like 5:30 in the afternoon, you kind of feel like maybe 10 people are paying attention.
Nah.
You know what I mean? Like it just and after a while it grates on you. So we got thrown off the Korn tour. I would say twice we got thrown off.
Well,
During while we were on it, we got thrown off. And the big one was I called out all the union guys for taking money from the opening bands to do a better job.
well, good for
And
you, man. That's yeah.
yeah, no, it wasn't though. It would like I should have just kept my mouth shut, but
You at that
it
point just exhausted because you've been out for so long, and like you were
totally,
seeing this,
totally.
and it was like enough, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that really culminated in Chicago at the Aragon Ballroom where I started a fight with a guy in the front row who started a fight with me. Um,
Okay,
and one of the rules of like playing in those types of shows is don't fucking you don't talk to the people in the front row
okay,
because nobody behind them knows what the fuck's going on. They don't get the context. So, but that whole tour, you'd hear people saying they're like, "You suck," or like throwing shit at us. And I got fed up at that show, and I basically told the whole crowd to fuck off. I jumped in the crowd, and the last lyrics of the song were fuck you," and I just gave the whole crowd the finger, and they booed for about 10 minutes after we were finished.
oh wow.
Yeah, and but that was I didn't get thrown off the tour on that. I got thrown off the tour for the union thing. And it was like this kid asked for money to do a better job for us. And then when we couldn't give it to, we were getting paid $500 a night, right? With money I never saw. I had no idea what the fuck that money was, right? We were
Yeah,
getting 5,000 a week in tour support, but that mostly went to our crew and to our rental van. So I literally saw nothing. I'd get
yeah.
$10 per diem, whatever. I'm promoting a record. I'm used to playing for free. It's just kind of the way it rolls. But the this kid, he asked for money. We're playing at Hard Rock Live in Orlando. We get on stage and we're in the dark. And I'm like,
Hmm.
what the fuck? So I go up to the mic and I'm like saying to our sound guy, I'm like, Rich, what is the sound guy there? Is it the light guy there? And he's like, no, no light guy here. You guys are on. Go. And I was like, okay. So
Hmm.
after the third song, I went up to the mic and I said, I guess this is the lighting guy's way of saying he wants us to pay him.
Wow.
And immediately, apparently, like the entire crew on stage just walked away. They literally just walked away. And I got a phone call right after we got off stage and they were like, "You're off the tour." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Well, let me handle it, blah, blah, blah. Go to the next show." So we go to the next show. I had to go to the production office, apologize to the kid who wasn't doing his job. I had to apologize to him.
Jeez.
And then literally right after that meeting, I walked on stage. And the production manager goes, I don't know if you're going to have a PA tonight. I doubt you're going to have monitors. I doubt you're going to have lights.
Jeez.
And I was like, okay. So I
Uh-huh.
walked on stage and it was the best show of the tour.
Wow. Wow.
And we, from that show on, we had the best lights that I'd ever had in my life. Because
That's crazy, right? Like,
after that incident, that kid's boss took over doing lights for us.
which obviously sounds like it worked out.
Yeah. Well, he
Right.
came up to us and he was just like, the kid was wrong. He learned his lesson.
Okay.
I was like, all
Yeah.
right.
That's
Yeah, it was like that shit went on forever. But and then we toured with Chevelle after that, and then we took off from that and we didn't know what was going on. Our drummer had quit in the middle of a tour, um, which fucked up our pay to play, which is like if anybody knows about major label contracts, it's like this thing that you're supposed to get if you get dropped. They're supposed to buy you out of if you're
hmm.
guaranteed two records, they buy you out of your budget for your next record. That made it so that we didn't get any money. And we found out we were being dropped in like May or June of 2005. Um, and yeah, that was it. And like we were gonna continue on as Instruction, but we had some internal problems with some band members. So the guys who did get along stayed together. We changed our name. We wanted to write different style of music, and that's where Godfire's Man started.
Yeah.
And the whole time during that time, especially during Instruction, I was playing in a band called Gay for Johnny Depp,
Hmm.
which was like a super spazzed out hardcore band that only toured in England. and, uh,
Hmm.
and that started getting pretty popular over there. Um, so we were splitting our time between Gay for Johnny Depp and Godfire's Man. And yeah, and then Godfire's Man broke up, Gay for Johnny Depp went on, and Gay for Johnny Depp broke up. St. Vitus started. And that's when Primitive Weapons started, which was
Yeah.
another band I was in for
Yep.
many years. And actually, Primitive Weapons is the only band I've put out 3 albums with. Uh,
Isn't it amazing with all that? Like, go after
yeah,
we're talking Mind Over Matter, Errortype 11,
yeah,
Instruction, right?
the only band.
Yeah.
And so that lasted forever. And then I did a band called Unwed with Jason from Hot Water Music in the middle of that. I did a band called Ageist with some friends of mine that was a really, really cool, like Hot Snakes style indie band. Um, and Primitive Weapons broke up, and then, the pandemic hit and all that other bullshit. And yeah, then I started Ben to
So yeah, so what brought you to
that,
Ben, right? Like, so because really cool. So there's so much we could even more with Instruction and obviously all
yeah,
the other
dude. I
bands and
mean,
Primitive Weapons.
just
No,
shut
it's
me
just
up,
such good.
please. Like,
No, no, no. It's just such good stories and like with music and all the different styles and stuff that you've done. Because like Ben is like it's different, obviously to me in terms of the other stuff that you do. Alt rock, like darker in a good way, and like very introspective. So what inspired you to explore this direction? You have Chris along with you, obviously, who's in you guys with the drummer, and you guys just put out your new album, which I wanted to get into Perpetual Architecture, and we're going to go over each track here with it. But let's talk quickly,
awesome.
like what made you want to start, Ben?
Uh, I I've been when Primitive Weapons ended, I was kind of like, I want to sing again. Is after Gay for Johnny Depp and Godfire's Man, I just had this moment where I was like, I don't think the world is trying to tell me something that like they don't like my voice or like there's something wrong with me that I just can't seem to connect. I think that that's a little bit misguided. I was connecting, but I just didn't see it. Like it's hard for you to see it when you're inside. Because Godfire's Man, especially like our first record, Billion Balconies Facing the Sun, is like my favorite record I've ever written besides the Ben record. And it didn't get any attention. It came out on Universal, it
Mm.
was like a whole thing. But I was just like, this record is so good. Why can't anybody hear this? I don't understand. And, I tried to find excuses for that. And I was like, hey, it must be my voice. It's got to be my voice because the songwriting's really good and the guys who played on it are amazing. So after Primitive Weapons, which obviously I wasn't the singer of, I kind of shared it with Dave. Um, I was like, if I'm going to write songs, I want to sing. And
Mm.
that's kind of the way I felt about it. So I was writing songs the whole time. And then the pandemic hit, and the pandemic kind of paralyzed me in a lot of ways. I had two businesses that were shut down. Um, my neighborhood went into disarray. I mean, everybody's did, but
Yeah,
New York, I felt especially got hit hard
I
because
agree.
there was just a lot of shitty policies that were they didn't need to lock down the way they did. They scared the shit out of the population for really uh, I mean, I don't want to get into it. I'm not some right-wing anti-vaxxer, but mandates are not necessary. And as it turned
Mhm.
out, the vaccines didn't do what they said they were going to do, so it was unnecessary to be mandated for it. That's sort of treating people like children, which is unnecessary. But I'm definitely like a heavily left-wing guy. But there were policies during the yeah, as a business owner in New York City, it felt like we were being blamed for everything. It felt like I owned two bars. And it was like, well, it's your fault because you put alcohol in people and they gather in places, and that's how this spreads. And it's like, actually, you don't even know that. So shut the fuck
Mhm.
up. And every day I'd have to see Andrew Cuomo, fucking jerk off, and De Blasio on TV changing the rules every fucking week. And as a
Yeah,
business owner, I'm like, what do I got to do this week? Like fucking hell. Like we're only allowed to have, fucking 10 people in the building, but I
yeah,
gotta like spend $3,000 building some fucking structure for you. Like, it was just ridiculous.
yeah.
And like nobody knew what the fuck they were talking about. And it completely ruined everything. And we still haven't recovered. And I don't think we'll ever fucking recover. But anyway, and that's not to degrade any of the people who actually got sick and died or got really sick and almost died. I
Yeah, you're
realized
just talking policy stuff that was
it was
going
a
on in
real
terms of the
thing.
businesses. Yeah.
It was a real disease. It was a real thing.
Mhm.
People got sick, like I was lucky I didn't, but it scared the shit out of the population to the point where like, the restaurant business and the bar business hasn't recovered. You know, they were literally trying to destroy mom and pop businesses in New York City, which is the reason people fucking moved to New York City,
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
their culture that it's just fucking ridiculous. Anyway, so I was writing the whole time. I decided I wanted to do an acoustic thing. That really didn't come about. And I started jamming a little bit with my friend Jeff, who's the drummer who played on the record. And Jeff we played together in a band called The Twin, which we currently play in. I play lead guitar in that band, which is another band. Sorry, I didn't mention. Singer's gonna kill me. And um, so we were writing and it was just me and him, and we were trying out a couple bass players. And I owned a bar up the block from my house. There were a bunch of regulars. Everybody was a musician. So there was this guy Eric who I would hang out with. He was a big fish head, but he also loved Fugazi, and and I love both Fish and Fugazi as well. I'm not as big a Fish fan, but he also like we would stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning listening to Yes and just getting drunk and King Crimson and like all this like prog shit. And I was like, dude, why don't you come down and jam with me? And as it turned out, he actually knew the drummer because they were both from Michigan. So it was like automatic blend. Like we played one song that I had sent him a demo of, and as soon as he started playing it, I was just like, "That's it, you're the guy."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, we're gonna get another guitar player," and it was like, it's one of these things where, eh, as a three piece, I'd never played in a three piece before, and I was like, maybe we'll try this. It's much easier with less scheduling. You know what I mean? So I didn't have to deal with another
Oh yeah, I
person's
can imagine, right?
fucking
Yeah.
personal
My
problems.
band's a
And
five piece to get everybody together sometimes. That could three definitely makes it
right,
easier, I guess, right? So
exactly. Yeah. And so I was like, let's try it. And like, playing in a three piece really kind of leaves a lot of more room for the rhythm section melodically.
right, right.
Like, and the bass player has to take up a lot more space to make up for the lack of a second guitar player. And so I kind of started writing as a three piece, and it really kind of changed my perspective. And that was kind of like how it all developed. I mean, some of the stuff was older songs I had written that I brought in, and we, reworked them. And some of the stuff was influenced by playing with these guys and the way that they sounded in the room. I was just like, this is so cool. It had a very progressive rock element to it that I
Oh yeah.
loved. And I also, shoegaze has become the big thing in the past like 5 years, but I've been into shoegaze since the early 90s, and I've always wanted to do stuff like that. And I've dabbled in it in my other bands, but because of the way my voice sounds, it's kind of difficult to pull off. And most people would be like, well, the music is shoegazy, but then you come in and you sound like, you sound like a radio rock singer singing over a shoegaze band. And like, we don't like that because shoegaze is very gatekeepy. It has to sound specific. So I sort of went in vocally with a little bit of a different idea. I wanted to affect my voice out more. I wanted to have it more in the mix than it always, like every engineer always mixes me way over the top. And it's like they're like, well, you don't need auto tune, and like you sing in tune, like you can sing, you should be above the mix. And I'm just like, yeah, but I don't want to be above the mix. That's not the
Mm.
type of music I like. Like I like listening to shit where the music is like Radiohead, like it's like it's another instrument. It's another melodic instrument in the other melodic instruments. So, that was kind of the intention with Ben. And we were rehearsing for like maybe a month or two. And I was like, you know what? Another thing I've never done before was try and capture that like first, how like your first time you play a song in rehearsal and you get all the way through it, and then you go home and you listen to it, it's the best version that ever was because
Right.
it's got all that energy, all that like
True.
I'm not sure what I'm gonna do next
Yeah.
energy. The drummer's like maybe speeding up a little bit. It's like everybody's unsure, but they know it's good. And there's that energy that's just fucking fantastic. And I wanted to capture that in any way I could. So I booked studio time to record an album after 2 months of rehearsing. I think we had rehearsed maybe 3 times. I swear to God. And I was just like, I'm all right, we're doing a record. We're doing it with Mario Quintero from Spotlights. Like I wanted him, like I made time, I figured it out how to get him involved because I love his production work and I love his mixing work and the sound that I had in my head, I felt like he could do really well. Like I wanted a fuzzed out shoegazy sound musically, but I also wanted that element of progressive rock that
Mm.
I always kind of like haven't. There's definitely a line of progressive rock in a lot of the music that I write, but it comes out in the context of alt rock. So I'll write a song in 13, but then like the drummer switches it to 4.
So with the new album too, with I hear because I hear you talking about like these different things and influences and stuff that you were utilizing with it, like with Perpetual Architecture. I hear Radiohead in there. I do. I also hear with songs like you have songs like Run and other songs on the album as well, like AIQ. AIQ almost in a way has like a collective soul sound a little bit in a great way. I'm a big collective soul guy. So and I think it sounds great. And then like Passions of Great Misfortune almost sounds like a little like a Stone Temple Pilots in a way from the Tiny Music era. And then Auto Populate has its own sound. So it's really cool what you're doing with this. It's really introspective, like I said before, and it's a great listen. It's a great listen, and the songs have some length in a good way, but it goes by so fast, which is good.
Yeah, the song length was definitely something that we were I stopped caring about that shit. It's like in the Spotify age, everything has to be front loaded. You only have a couple of seconds for people to pay attention to you. All that bullshit. I just didn't fucking care. Uh, yeah, stuff like I mean, AIQ is Queens of the Stone Age, straight up. I'll admit that one.
That too,
Uh,
yeah, you hear that too, yes. Mm-hmm.
but Queens of the Stone Age and Radiohead are two bands that like I have to stop listening to because it seeps into my writing pretty heavily. And I try to stay as original as humanly possible. Stuff like Passions of Great Misfortune, where you talked about Tiny Music. Tiny Music is one of my favorite records ever made. Um, uh,
Yeah, it's a great record,
but
it really
it's
is.
definitely that song has more of a Smashing Pumpkins vibe to it, where I literally went to when I recorded it, I was like, Mario, since Smashing Pumpkins doesn't write songs like this anymore, I wrote this song. But it's kind of like Smashing Pumpkins, and it's kind of like a song off of Gish, but I want it to sound like it's on Siamese Dream. So how can we do that?
It's
So
cool.
there's like 7 layers of fuzz guitar in it. But the yeah, I mean everything you're mentioning though is all 90s stuff. And it's like that
But
was
I
the
apologize
last.
already. But like with your sound, that like with a sound of today that you have, and like with your twist to it, which is so good. You
Yeah,
know.
that was
Sorry to
that was the
interrupt.
objective. That was the objective, was to like have that sort of like 'cause that's just the way I write. It's gonna have a 90s vibe to it, but I want it to sound modern, which is where Mario comes in. It's just like make me sound like like make me sound as good as my contemporaries, but with this songwriting that is, to me, the 90s, like that middle 90s grunge period is the last great period of rock music. It's like it was taking from 70s classic rock, and it was still not digital completely, so it was still being recorded analog. Like it was still I'm nostalgic for it because it's still a period of time when people actually got together and wrote songs together, as opposed to like, trading fucking files back and forth, which is one way of doing it, but for me personally, it's not the best way. I need to be in a room. I need to vibe off of everybody. I need to like have the guys that are around me who are better players than me go like, "Hey, I wrote this cool bass line to this. What do you think?" And like, "Cool, we're starting the song with that because it's that good." Or that drum beat is great, or that drum beat sucks. Like you don't get that opportunity anymore because everybody's so separated, and especially at my age where, like my practice space is an hour and a half from my house. Like I'm not going there, 5 times a
All right.
week.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
going there.
far. Yeah.
It's fucking it's pain in the ass. I mean, it's only like 13 miles, but it's an hour and a half. But it's like,
Especially with traffic and everything. Forget it.
yeah,
Yeah.
of course. So yeah, I mean, I appreciate the what you're saying about it. I went in, I knew this record was good. I knew the songs were good. Um, and I just wanted to put my best foot forward. Unfortunately, we didn't have that much money because I was financing the whole thing.
No.
So it took, we recorded it 2 years ago, and and our drummer quit. He moved to Kansas City to play, and he plays in Coalesce and Casket Lottery and a bunch of other bands. He played in Thursday for a little while. Um, but like, yeah, like so he left and Chris came in. But it's like it's hard when you get like that melding, and then all of a sudden you got to change. And luckily Chris is so good that it's pretty easy. But of course he plays in 15 bands, so not, like pinning him down to like get things going is hard. But when we do get in the room together, it's amazing. It's like it's so effortless. The chemistry is absolutely incredible, and I really feel like this record with Jeff too, with like the chemistry was just so easy. Everything just flowed out of everybody, and we had fun. Like we like each other. And that's a big again,
That's huge, right?
I'm 52 years old. Like I don't have the patience to deal with bullshit. And I feel like I haven't really dealt with that much bullshit through my life, but it's you know uh, this is definitely like the least amount of bullshit I've ever dealt
Yeah.
with.
But you're
It's
right. Like
great.
at this point in your life doing this, and you've got a lot of experience with it in terms of all the tours and bands and all that stuff, you don't want to deal with that. Like this is supposed to be fun, right? And to enjoy it. My next question is actually, even though the album just came out and it kills, and everybody needs to listen to it as soon as possible, is you said, like you said, these songs are a little old. They're not old, but have you been writing new material with Ben with this new group, and what's the plan with that moving forward?
Oh yeah, no, we already have like, I mean, I have at least another album written. We
Ah,
we
that's
have
great.
we play a new song in the set,
Cool.
which is ridiculous because our record wasn't even like, our record came out and we're like, yeah, let's play a new song. Like we could play 5 new songs if we wanted.
Okay.
Like the band is very loose, like as far as like live, and I don't really know how this came about. There's one song on the record called "We Are Not Alone," which
That's a really good
which
one. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like it's
One of your
six and a half
singles too,
minutes.
right? That's a single that you
Yeah,
put out
yeah,
on
yeah. I
the
put out a
album.
6.5 minute single, which like a fucking
Mhm.
idiot, but like
It's a good, it's a really good song, man.
I was psyched on that song because like it was written as a jam, and there's a 4 minute like instrumental part at the end of the song, and it's like it sounds like King Crimson. I wanted it to sound like King Crimson. And every time we play it live, we play it a little different. So there's an element of jamming that we do on stage, which you can really only do with guys who are A, really good, or B, really experienced, or both.
Mhm.
And it makes the show so much more exciting. Like I'll do Eric takes way too long to fucking tune in between songs. So I kind of morphed into this weird thing where like I'll write a new song in between songs on stage. I'll just start playing a riff and I'll start singing and then everybody kind of joins in. And
That's
it's like,
cool. Yeah.
it's only like a minute and a half or 2 minutes, but it's super fun. And like I did it in another band because we had issues with equipment and stuff. And it's like it's just fun. Like you get on stage and you don't know what's going to happen, and the reaction from the crowd has been way different than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I really I thought people were going to hate it that we did all that sort of like weird shit where you couldn't really follow what was going on, but they loved it. It was like we would get the biggest ovations after doing a jam, which was totally cool. I was like, this is interesting. Like I never thought I was good enough to do it, but like I surround myself with guys who are good enough to do it, and I stick to my strengths, which is songwriting. And it's like it really just fun. And again, like the way my vocals are mixed in, the way my vocals work in this band is like my favorite thing that I've done as a songwriter because it's mixed into the mix. There's a lot of effects on my vocals, so it doesn't necessarily always sound like me. It sounds like me.
Mhm.
Like I project a lot and like I like really loud voice. And so it's fun and it's like it's just taking me to a different place, which at my age I didn't expect to happen. And like I'm really excited about like we have a one new song that's like 7.5 minutes long, which I'm fucking
Oh,
totally psyched about. It's
yeah.
like let's just keep doing that shit. Like who fucking
That's awesome.
cares? You know,
That's
and,
awesome.
and and like because I feel like people who play the style of music that we play don't really do shit like that. And it's just it's cool and it's fun and I want people to hear it and like we just got to get in front of people, which is never that easy. It was like it was a lot easier when St. Vitus was open because I could just be like, "Hey, I think my band would fit on that show. Should I
Yeah.
put them? Yeah, 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 you could be out there. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, you guys will be good." But I haven't had that in a while. But still we're playing great shows and it's fun, man. Like and the record's it's a good listen. It's like it's really diverse. There's a lot of different types of songs on it.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, it's not all over the place. You can tell it's the same band, but like there's a lot of different influences in there. There's like I I'm obsessed with old Britpop stuff because that's I was into that in the mid '90s. So like Suede or Placebo, which isn't really a Britpop band,
Placebo's
but like
awesome. Yeah, placebo's a good one.
like um, there's a song called "The Want Monster," which is at sort of at the end of the record, which is was written with a Placebo influence, but when it came through the ringer of our
It's funny
filter,
now that you say that. Yeah. Okay.
it really doesn't sound like Placebo, but
But
I wanted it to.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, and but it's still it's got a lot of heaviness to it, so where I didn't want to do like the straight up, play my dual rectifier with my SG and get like that straight distortion sound. I was like, let's experiment. I never used like a fuzz pedal. I never used a fuzz pedal for distortion for my like main sound.
Mhm.
So on this record, I did a lot, and live I do, and it's fun. Like I was like, oh, this is cool. This is kind of like Dinosaur Jr. Like, and it gives it a different element, and it stays out of the way of the bass. It's where the bass is filling a certain frequency, and I'm filling a certain frequency. It's which as a three piece, you got to think about that shit.
Of
It's like
course.
very strategic that I play my G&L Telly as opposed to my Dunable, which I got an endorsement, so I get a little plus, and and
That's
or
awesome.
my it's like just stuff like that, like really thinking out. And again, like that shit comes from experience. It's like I played the GNL through my JMP Marshall, and I was like, this is the sound of this band. I've never done this combination before, but this is the sound of this band, and this is where I want to go. So, now we got Chris in the mix, which Chris is an even proggier drummer than Jeff was.
Hmm.
So, it's going to be fun. It's going to be super
Yeah.
fun. I want to go in
Well,
and record immediately. Like if I,
oh, good, because that was my next thing. Because I was like, I know the
like,
album just came out, but like you said, the songs are they're not old, but you
yeah,
had
I mean,
time
they're
to
new.
write new stuff. So you're clearly thinking about it when you're actually even playing new songs in the set, which is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, with the streaming age, everything is new all the time.
That's true.
Like
That's
you
true.
never like during when Vitus was around, in the mid 2010s, everything old was new again. It was like all these old metal bands in the 80s started getting back together, no matter how big they were. They're like bands that were like barely popular were getting back together. And I was like, why is this happening? Oh, it's happening because of Spotify,
True.
because it's easy to find.
Yeah.
They're like, so like who are into whatever modern metal is happening, all of a sudden on their, request, if you're a fan of this, you might like this, these bands would show up. So these bands would like, so you never, everything is new to a person who hasn't heard it. And that's the thing that always bothers me about like how you roll out records now, where it's like you put out 3 singles, you get a couple of streams, and then like the record comes out and then it's just like, that's it. It's like,
Mhm.
no, people should be constantly discovering your music and finding different ways to do it. That's why, it's why we do podcasts and stuff. It's like
Right.
this
Right.
is a way of promoting when, nobody gets in a van and goes on tour for 3 or 4 months anymore, unless you're like a hardcore band like Haywire or something. But like, it's just not done like that anymore because it's not efficient. Somebody's got to pay for that shit because it takes forever to get popular.
Yeah.
And with streaming, as flawed as it is, which it definitely is fucking flawed, as I've seen as my records come out, and it's like the algorithms have gotten just fucking ridiculous. It's like you're like, wait, so nobody heard this song this week? Like, how is that possible? It's like, oh, it's because you want my money. I forgot all about the corporate algorithm. If you're not paying for it, now you got to fucking pay for it. But there was a sweet spot in like 2015, 2016, where social media, you didn't have to pay for it to promote, and Spotify, you didn't really have to pay for it to get into the right algorithm. So all of that shit met, and like all these bands were able to kind of break through without having to spend a shit ton of money. And there was all that shit like, well, the playing field is even now, right? Distribution is even, and you don't need record deals. Yeah, but there's no gatekeepers and there's no merit system. It's not merit
Hmm.
based.
Hmm.
It's like it's just a money thing. Or if like some influencer puts out a song, which is fucking ridiculous. Like, it's like this guy's got 1 million followers. They put out a song and like all of a sudden they got like 1 million streams. And it's not because it's good. It's just because, people know about it. And and that's the game. It's the
Yeah.
game now. It
Yeah.
sucks. It should be merit based. Music should be merit based. It should be how much experience you have, how good you are, and it's just totally not. It's not fair anymore on any level. And I think something's gonna break.
At
And
some point, it's coming. You're right, and then maybe not now, or maybe in a couple of years, or even sooner than that.
well,
There's a
now you
lot.
have AI. So now there's even more fucking noise.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? Now we got to
Yeah.
deal with computers? Like, what
Yeah.
the fuck?
Hmm.
It's insane. But I think with that stuff, I could talk about this for hours, but like with that stuff, there's always going to be a certain element of the population that is going to be interested in a band's backstory or interested in going to see live music because it's visceral and it's real. Where AI, it's not like that, like I can't see AI music having the same emotional connection that a real singer-songwriter has.
No,
I can't see it.
not at all. Yeah.
But there is a huge part of the population that doesn't give a shit, that music is not important to them. It's just background music. That's all. So, like when I talk about like when I look back at like St. Vitus and I think about the amount of people who came through the doors, that's a really small percentage of the population. And all of those
True.
people were basically music nerds. They're fucking massive music fans. They're seekers. And, it's like, it's in reality, that's not a large percentage of the population. And
Yeah.
now music is so convenient that you don't have to put any effort into it. So you don't own it. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah,
no
yeah.
owning it.
And so
It's fucked up.
yeah, no, it is. No, dude, Artie, this is like we're not done yet because I have this because I have a bunch of questions.
But go listen to the band record.
First thing, yeah, but definitely no, but that yeah. Before getting to this part of it, you're 100% right. Definitely, if you have not listened to the new Ben record, it really does kill, dude. I'm not just saying that because you're on here. I really, really,
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed it. It's awesome. Um, but this is great conversation, obviously great conversation. And I want to like what I have at the ending here is I'll have a bunch of questions. First thing that comes to mind with it, but incorporated with it, what I want to do is definitely have some St. Vitus stuff. And I do want to ask, we are gonna usually don't tell the guest on the podcast what it's gonna be, but I'm also gonna have the Age of Quarantine on that you had that podcast rolling through COVID, which was awesome. So my first question is, and first thing that comes to mind with it, and you've had a lot of them, favorite show you organized at St. Vitus?
Wow. You're gonna have
You
to
had
edit out
Megadeth play
the
there.
pauses. Yeah, I mean, but Megadeth wasn't my favorite.
Yeah, you've had some good ones, but what I should have was you had some good ones there, like big ones there.
Yeah, I mean, I the Nirvana thing was is an easy call. Um, it was so stressful and it was so legendary.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but there's this guy Frank Turner, um, who he's a folk punk guy from England, and I toured with his old band Million Dead in 2006 before he went solo and became Frank Turner, who's like, he's huge now. And he was a big fan of the band Mineral,
Hmm.
from the Midwest, an old
Yeah,
emo
good
band.
band. Mhm.
And they were playing a sort of secret show at Vitus after they played Bowery Ballroom. And we were I saw online, we're friends. I have his phone number, so we're friends, but like he went online and he was like, "Oh man, I think I'm gonna come to that. I'm gonna fly in for that show." And so I side texted him and I was like, "Dude, do you want to play?" And he was like, at this point, he'd like, I think he sold out the fucking Beacon Theater and shit. Like, I mean, he's big. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm coming with my friend for his stag party, but yeah, I'll play." So he flew over, we rented him a guitar, and he fucking played first at the show. And like it was fucking wild. And the show was already sold out, so it didn't even matter that he was playing. That was a really, really cool moment, and it was cool of him to play. And he was just like psyched. He's like, "I can't believe I get to open for Mineral. They're like one of my favorite bands." And I'm just like, "Yeah, all right, dude, whatever." But I mean, but it was fucking cool. It was fucking wild. And another one is we did a lot of like late night after secret shows. And my favorite one we ever did was Refused.
Oh,
And Refused, and the reason being Primitive Weapons opened, which because they borrowed our gear. That was like literally the only reason we opened is because they needed our backline.
mhm.
It was just like, okay, well, we'll play like 5 songs. And they got on stage, they played New Noise, they played their new song, and then they did like 10 covers. And they nailed it. They nailed it. It was like just unbelievably good. Unbelievably good. And it
Cool.
was like super fun. And I was like, that's how you do a secret show, man. You don't repeat the set you did earlier because all the kids that were there had already seen them that
Oh,
night.
that's cool. Okay.
So they went in and they fucking played a bunch of cover songs. They did like Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, and they nailed it. And they were so good and they were super fun. And like, yeah, that was like one of my favorite shows by far.
Cool. A song, and you have a lot here that you wrote that you're most proud of.
Uh, there's two on the instruction record that I felt were sort of seminal for me. There's one called I'm Dead, which basically got us our record deal with Geffen, um, and was released as a single, but not until after we were dropped. Whoops. Um, and uh, and a song called Feed the Culture, which was an acoustic song on the instruction record, which reason being is because like Bob Ezrin and I had a conversation when we found out that we were getting soft release. Um, so basically we were like, on the chopping block, but we were in the middle of making our record. And Bob was like, "Well, let's spend some money. What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I have this acoustic song that kind of sounds like Led Zeppelin that like I would love to put an orchestra on and a tambour and a sitar. And he's like, I'll get a drum circle. You know Stephen Perkins? I'm like, from Jane's Addiction? Yeah. He's like, I'll have him come in and play. I was like, fucking great. So we did all that. And it was awesome. It came out amazing. I mean, it's a bit of an outlier on the album, but you know, it was like it was sort of a like a middle finger to the label
Okay.
for like you're gonna fucking drop us? Well, fuck you. We're gonna spend all your money.
Uh-huh.
You know, it was like we're never gonna recoup, so who gives a shit? But yeah, and then like you know the Ben record has obviously your latest songs are your favorite, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So there's a ton of so Run is a particular song that I felt was like the next step for me as a songwriter
Good song to
because
open the record too.
yeah,
But
it was My Paranoid Android. So I took two
mhm.
songs and I combined them. Um and because I realized that I've been writing a lot of songs about being paranoid and about internet culture because of what happened with Vitus and social media and that sort of stuff and like you know like we can all say that like no one's watching us, no one cares, but at the end of the day, social media and all that other shit really it brings out mental illness in people who might not necessarily have had mental illness. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's kind of fucked up. And so that song was about that, and I combined two songs that were about that, and I was really proud of myself that I was able to do it. And when I recorded it at home, I was like, I put it together. I was like, wow, I can do this. I can edit. Look at me. And yeah, it's a cool song. It's like it's got all these elements of like prog and Radiohead and Jane's Addiction and like all these things that I love, and I actually like my voice on it for a change. So you know, it's pretty cool.
Cool.
That's another one.
Now you've had a lot of great tours. What's your favorite tour you've been on?
Ooh, wow. Yeah, I always say that I've had too much fun in my life and like way too much fun. Like most people shouldn't be allowed to have this much fun, and it's maybe why so many like sort of weird bad things have happened to me in the past couple of years. But the um I don't know. I'm gonna say, and this is gonna be weird because it's definitely not the biggest tour I've ever been on, but Sam I Am, Errortype 11, the Do Nots, who are a huge band in Germany now. Um, we did a 2 week tour of Germany in 1998 that was so much fun. We had a tour bus, all three bands were on it. It's the smelliest fucking bus in history. And we just like I fucking we went crazy. We were just like crazy. It was a crazy time. It was super fun. I learned a lot from the Sam I Am guys. They're really, really cool people. They're crazy people. Um, but that tour, they had just been dropped from a major label, and like I just learned a lot about the music industry. I learned a lot about just being a band and like having fun with it. Because those guys like now they basically their touring is like vacation, which is kind of cool. You know, like I learned a lot from the tour, and I also had more fun than most people should really be able to have, to
Okay.
be
Cool.
honest.
And the stories too, like you told before with instruction or like you went over, were awesome.
Oh yeah, the Metallica story is fucking nuts, and you know, like that wasn't a tour, so I can't say it was, but it was right after that we did the Biffy Clyro tour, and like that was another seminal experience for me where I'm watching this band who were headlining play in front of 50 people a night. And you know, and they were like, everybody was just like, I don't know if I like this band, and I'm like, this band is fucking ridiculously good.
Mhm.
And they basically wrote a record in front of us at sound checks. And I would like sit down every day. Take a chair, I'd sit down and I just watch them play. And I just like, I can't, like this band, it like phenomenal, like
Yeah.
out incredible. And you know, they put out another record after that record, and then they got signed to Warner Brothers in like 2005, I think. And then they changed their sound a bit and went more commercial. And now like they headline Reading Festival now. Like they're
Oh,
fucking
wow. Yeah.
huge.
Man.
But yeah, it's like I'd say I took something from every tour I've done, But the Sam I Am tour was like it was early on and it was super fun, and it was still when you had to follow a map when you went on tour in Europe. There's no GPS.
Yeah.
Uh, it's like that was the thing with like those Mind Over Matter and Bad Trip tours we did in the early 90s. We were kids. I mean, John LaFada was in high school.
Yeah.
And we went to Europe and it just like, you'd meet your driver, your van driver, who was like some crust punk from like Czechoslovakia who would be like, yes, hello, yeah, and they'd have the map and like we'd meet him at the airport, we'd get in the van and go, and it's like that was crazy. It was when I think about it, like would I be happy if my daughter was just like dropped in the middle of Europe with a bunch of people and like, it's like met up with some stranger and just went? Like it's crazy, and you don't know what you're gonna get. You show up.
Oh,
We
that's
played in
true.
East
Yeah.
Germany. We had a guy pull a gun on us
Wow.
because they were Nazis and they thought we were like we were in Eastern Europe right after the wall fell. So it was like maybe 5 years after, and Eastern Europe and East Germany particularly was really bad. It was like fucking shitty, shitty, and and it was scary. And it's like all the buildings were still blown up because the Russians never fixed anything after World War II. So we were seeing things that like were kind of mind blowing, and we were also experiencing social democracy, which I mean, for a bunch of kids from Long Island, was really eye opening. It was like, wait, so you guys don't pay for health insurance, but they'll just take care of you?
Hmm.
Like, how does that work? And wait, you're allowed to be on unemployment for 3 years? And wait, you like you can go to college for free? Like it was just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And I was like, and this all works? And all the kids were so much fucking smarter than American kids. That the education system was so much better.
Yeah.
Like they blew us away with their knowledge and they all spoke like four languages. It's like we're just like idiots. I can't even speak Spanish. It's like we could barely speak English. We're from Long Island, for fuck's sake. Uh, it's yeah, all of the touring experiences were great, but those particular ones were
Cool.
were fun.
Awesome. Last question here, man. You had the podcast going during COVID, Age of Quarantine. What's your favorite guest that you had? You had some good ones too.
Ooh. Um, well, I mean that the whole show was split between three people. So Chris did most of it, then Dave did a bunch, and I did a little bit more than Dave. Um, I mostly interviewed my friends and ex-bandmates. Because Age of Quarantine was basically a way to stay connected when we were
Yeah.
all,
It was great.
like
It was so great. Like I remember that particular time. It was just like, oh, it was so good to hear about like the music and the people that you had on there. So yeah.
yeah, like we definitely went out of our way to not talk about what was going on at the moment. It was like, let's
Yeah.
talk about good times, let's talk about music, let's talk about, anything but. And at the time, I owned a bar down the block from my house. So I was doing all the interviews in the basement of that bar, and I was getting pretty drunk while I was doing it, um, which was par for the course during the pandemic, because it was just like I couldn't have been more depressed. So it's like,
Mhm.
it wasn't very helpful, to be honest. Um, I would say my favorite interview was, and I'll bring them up again, was Simon from Biffy Clyro.
Mhm.
Um, we did the interview. He was at home in Scotland. Uh, you could barely understand what the fuck he was saying. But he's in this massive band, and he was talking about these really, really underground metal bands. I always knew he was into metal, and he was like he wanted to talk about St. Vitus more than he wanted to talk about himself. So he was just like, he's like, yeah, when you guys had this band play there, that's fucking crazy, man. Blah 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 blah. And like he's so excited, and like he was like talking about Imperial Triumphant, who was like one of my favorite bands at the time. It's just like I was like, yeah, those guys are fucking great. Like, how do you even know who the fuck Imperial Triumphant is? And he's like, oh, dude, I like their last record is so good. It's like avant-garde metal. I don't know if you know who they are, but like they're from New York. They're
Yeah.
great. They're on Century Media, and it's like it was just mind-boggling to me. I was like, you're still like you're as big a band as you are, you're still that big of a music fan. And that like it made me feel really good about them as a band and as them as people. I mean, I already knew they were good, but you never know how people change when they get popular. And it was literally like no time had passed. It was like talking to him when he was 20. And you know, I can't even imagine the experiences he's had, since that time that I toured with him. But like, he's fucking great. Just humble and cool and massive, and just awesome. And still putting
Yeah.
out. They're less record. Their newer records are more in a pop rock vein. They're sort of the Foo Fighters of England, shall we
Right,
say?
right. Mhm,
Um, but with a little bit more of a prog twist.
mhm.
But yeah, that was I think that was my favorite. I mean,
Well,
there was a couple that didn't go so great. There was a couple that like no disasters, but it was the whole as a whole. I mean, I think we did 360 episodes in
wow.
365 days.
I knew you did a lot. I didn't realize you did that many.
We
Wow.
did every day. We did every day for a year. That was the plan. We're gonna do it every day for a year. And then like we kind of ran out of people. So we cut it
Yeah, I mean,
down. And we were just like, I was like, I don't know who to fucking interview anymore. Like Chris would be like, well, we got to meet on Monday and talk about who we're going to interview. I was like, if we got to do that, then this isn't fun anymore. And like,
yeah, I see what
because
you
that the
mean.
whole point was for to do it for fun. We weren't looking to monetize it. It was literally like, this is interesting for me. Hopefully, it's interesting for the person I'm talking to, and then hopefully, it's interesting for the people who are watching it. And that's like any good podcast. Um, but it helped me get through the whole experience for sure.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I, I loved it,
it's
and I'm glad
needed.
you watched it. I'm really
Oh, it was awesome.
like,
It was great. It was like perfect for like needed at that time. But Artie, thank you so much. This was an amazing conversation, and still even talking about all the stuff we spoke about. Like so much more you'd want to talk about here with you.
I
It's
know I
always
want to talk about Sound Majority.
yeah.
I want
So
to talk about Glassjaw. I want to talk about fucking DOD. Yeah,
two great bands, two great bands.
another one is the Neglect. We just so we Chris and I do Rec Age records.
Right, right. Hmm.
And we kind of brought the label back specifically to reissue the Sound Majority Life of a Spectator record. And then it kind of like parlayed into the Millhouse record. And then Vitus closed, and I'm financially supporting it, so it's hard for me to do. Um, but I just remastered the Neglect Pull the Plug EP, and it's up on streaming, remastered now. But we're gonna do a release with Days Records,
Oh,
a
cool.
split release of Neglect Pull the Plug on 12-inch. It's going to be fucking awesome. It sounds great. You should go on streaming and listen to it. It
Mhm.
is, to me, that record it was such a game changer at the
Oh,
time.
classic. Yeah.
And it's definitely the best Neglect material. It's the best sounding Neglect material. And what I wanted to do was like, there's been a lot of like shitty half-ass releases of them. I wanted their best record to sound and look great for them because I love them as people, and I've known them forever. And obviously John is in Monover Matter. And I just wanted what was same thing with Sound Majority. It was like the whole point behind it was this everybody needs to hear this record, and I want them to hear it sounding as good as it can sound.
Hmm.
And that's the whole point. So I've been remastering a bunch of the stuff on the label. I remastered the Monover Matter records. That's all up on streaming now.
Awesome.
Hopefully, if there's enough call for it, I might do some vinyl for it, but like it's things are aging out at this point, and the vinyl market is not as hot as it was.
Yeah.
So, like every time we put out a record, I can't lose any money. So I got to be kind of careful. And there's a few things in the Wreckage catalog, Sons of Abraham, Neglect, Some Majority, Indecision, that can probably sell quite a few copies that
Hmm.
would enable us to make enough money to put out the stuff that might not sell as much.
Right, right,
But
right.
I got to
Mhm.
actually get it done. So the Neglect
Yeah.
record is another step in that. But
Nah,
I'm really excited about it because I feel like with the resurgence of that style of hardcore, there's been a resurgence of interest in Neglect. And with, I'm doing it with Days, which is the label to do it with. And like they're gonna and Lumpy is originally from Long Island, so we're keeping with the context of the whole
yep.
thing. Um, and I'm really excited about putting that out and having people hear it and just like get psyched on Neglect, the way that they should be, because they were they're really the first band to take obituary and like death metal riffs and mix it with hardcore, straight up way. It's just so well done, and it's so heavy and so fucking cool. And I can't wait for people to see it. The packaging is fucking amazing.
Can't
It's
wait. It's gonna be
awesome.
awesome. Yeah, it's gonna be
Oh,
awesome.
sorry. I'm sorry I took up more
No,
time.
no, that's awesome. That's right. And you have so many different things you do, which is amazing for this podcast or just in general to talk about, man. But thank you so much for coming on here. I'm just going to sign us off here. Hang tight, and we'll talk when I'm off. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything? Oh, Arty, I apologize. Before I do that, anything you want to end with?
Thank you for having me. Good luck with your reissue.
Thank you.
And Long Island Hardcore, let's go, man.
Yep,
It's fucking forever.
yep, absolutely. Thanks, Arty. All right, hang tight here.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the What Lies Ahead podcast, which is available on all streaming platforms. Go save the What Lies Ahead podcast playlist on Spotify that features all bands that were on the show. For more information on future episodes, you can go to my Instagram account and follow at What Lies Ahead _podcast, and on Facebook by searching What Lies Ahead podcast. See you on the next episode.